For sure. Yes, okay. Yes, you can just show that. Okay, all right, thank you. You're welcome. I mean, I was offered.
All right, I'll read to order the October 23rd, 2025 Town of Somerville Design Review Board agenda. I think the first order of business would be approving the minutes from last month. There a motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I didn't vote on this.
So first item up then would be the 709 North Main Street. Revision to previously approved salon plans.
So I'll go over this quickly. Y'all had previously, well, maybe not all of you had previously reviewed this project. It was a renovation of the old Red Pepper restaurant and will now be a beauty salon. Upon my final inspection, I did note that, and I'm just gonna downsize this here so we can look at some pictures, that the windows that were approved were not installed as approved. See if I can go through these. Get you the plan first. So you can see these are 2/2 here. Also on the east elevation, 2/2. There are some windows that don't feature that style. And again, here's the detail from the approved plans. And then we'll go to these pictures. Had these all open before, but they closed. We'll start with this. So you can see here and here. There we are. You can see that that was not installed as approved. So we have the business owner here. If you have any questions regarding the windows, he is also requesting to potentially paint the brick of the building white, and he does have a color sample with him. But those are the windows and the color painting the brick are the only thing that y'all are looking at tonight. So this is an after the fact request for approval.
Yes, hi, this is Tan. Thank you guys seeing me today. So I was working with my contractor, and I guess there's some miscommunication on what was approved by the plans on the windows. So after the fact, they installed all these windows and didn't realize that these were not the approved windows. So if you could, just it'd be great if we can just leave the windows as is. it would save me a bunch of money if I don't have to rip them out and install the windows per the plans. So,
Why don't you go ahead and mention the other item you had?
I'm sorry.
What is the other item you had?
I wanted to paint I wanted to leave the brick at the bottom that we newly installed the way it is, but I wanted to give a facelift of the brick the old brick, more of a cream color that I have right here. Just give it a more of a facelift. But the new installed brick at the bottom of the handicap ramp and then the front facade of the building, I keep it the brick look. I just wanted to paint the old exterior brick if that's possible.
All of the old exterior brick?
Yes. So I wanted to so the new stuff on the bottom we installed, I'll keep that the way it is. But everything else, as you see up there, yes, I wanted to paint that more of a lighter color, a creamer color to match the building.
What about the sides and the back?
Yeah, so it would be that front, the side, and then the back. Yes. The only thing I keep would be the new installed brick that on the bottom portion of the building. So you see, so yeah, it would be that side, the front side, the back, and then the other side facing the bank. But the new installed brick where the porch is, the stairway, the new addition to the building, I'd keep that the way it is.
Thank you.
Yours.
Any comments?
I would recommend that we allow the windows to stay and save them even more money by not letting them paint the brick.
That a motion?
Any other comment?
That could be a motion.
Any other comments?
So yeah, it doesn't seem consistent that you want to save money on some windows, but yeah, you want to spend probably a lot more on painted brick. And also painted brick is frowned upon by this board. And so I think since we've already went through a very intense design review process over probably 3 months on this project, that what was approved should be built.
I understood. You know, it's been a long time coming. I just wanted to power a suggestion. You know, things came after the fact, and it was just something to lift the building up. But still try to keep the original charm of the building. But I totally understand where you guys come from.
Any other comments?
I think the button bars are not going to be very evident at the distance they're viewed at from the street. And when you get within 10 feet of the building, who cares? Public won't see it, just customers.
Anybody else? Anybody else? And you got anything? All right, I'm not in favor of painted brick at all. I'm also in favor of you following the approvals from the DRB. I understand mistakes happen, but you know, we think about these things. I think we talked about the windows in particular with the architect when he was here. I understand where Bill's coming from, but we need to follow the plans. That's this board is for. But you know, that being said, would someone like to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion to deny the changes and to just comply with the previous final DRB approval.
Is there a second? All right. That motion fails. Would anyone else like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the windows as installed and not allow the brick to be painted.
I just want to point out, these are not historic windows that were installed. the drawings called for historic drawings to match existing windows, windows. So I think it'd be, inconsistent with our, with my marching order of trying to get, history incorporated and low country architecture incorporated into projects.
My comment would be that the windows aptly match the handrail, which were approved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
So, and just to clarify, the motion is approve the windows as installed, do not paint the brick.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor about the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No,
Motion passes. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next is Sawmill Townhomes. Rebecca, I'll recuse for this.
All right, so y'all saw this last month for conceptual DRB review. As a reminder, this project was previously reviewed as apartments and it will now be townhomes. I'll run through my comments here. At the conceptual meeting, the DRB noted that they wanted to see more projecting details as the elevations appeared to be flat. The board asked the applicant to consider low country details, porches, and carriage style garage doors. Relating to the site, the board was interested in how open green space would be addressed with potential amenities, recreation, and appropriate landscaping. The site plan has been updated to include landscaping that appears to meet the requirements of UDO Chapter 8. However, the specifics, meaning the number of plantings where there are proposed shrub patterns shown, will need to be finalized prior to site disturbance permits being issued. Additionally, care should be taken not to sod the ground all the way up to the tree trunk of proposed trees. Both of these items can be handled at a staff level. The site plan also features amenity areas as requested by the board, and the applicant's design professional who is here will need to walk the board through the updates to the proposed architectural design of the townhomes. And I'll hand it over to the applicant.
Yeah, let's maybe look at that one, Becca. Hello, everybody. Hilton Thomas, master developer Sawmill. As Becca said, we are here. Originally, we were planning to put 100 multifamily units on this particular site of the project. As you know, we have 365 multifamily units in the first 3 buildings. It's getting ready to wrap up. After consulting with our property management company, we decided to really kind of enhance the project by doing these townhomes to offer a different mix to a different demographic. And we have designed these units to hit that demographic. We've tried to save as much of the original intent, i.e. the walking path that goes through the townhomes and to, or through the multifamily project, through the ponds to the Sawmill Branch Trail. So really the green space should be very, very similar, if not totally similar to what we had originally proposed. So we don't really see any issue there. We'll certainly comply and make the landscaping consistent with what we've done on multifamily projects. So that'll all be very consistent. That's one of the big themes that we're, as you know, we're trying to carry throughout the entire project as a consistent architectural theme. 2PA, our architect, has basically designed these townhomes to fit the industrial aesthetic and to marry up with the multifamily project. So I know there was some comments about porches, different garage styles, but we feel pretty strongly that what we have is basically trying to hit a demographic and a rent number. And that's kind of what we, presented to you. And I'll let Glenn get into a little bit more of that, but I'm happy to address any specific questions related to landscaping or amenities. These units will have full access to the amenities, which are very rich within the multifamily project. So we think that's a great attribute for what we're going to be doing there. And with that, I will turn it over to Preston to talk about any site issues.
Preston Busby, Seaman Whiteside. As Milton said, the two apartment buildings just north of the three that are currently being built is the area that we're focusing on for townhomes. Becca, if you go to the site plan rendering, which I think is the fifth sheet. One more down. There we go. So this is the site plan where the two apartment buildings were previously designed. The main corridor of this site is that pedestrian walkway that connects down to the Sawmill Branch pathway and continues up through the apartment site to have future connectivity with Sawmill Center Drive. And that is kind of the main outdoor space that we have that mimics the apartment site. We have added some additional outdoor open space and amenities in the areas shown on the plan. Another thing that was mentioned in the meeting was continuous drive access up to the units from the garage side. We've broken those up into individual drives to create more green space, kind of separating those units to help with the green space. And I think that addressed most of the board's comments and questions from a site standpoint, and I will turn it over to the architect to go over the building elements.
Hello, Glenn Allison with Pool and Pool Architects. As Preston and Milton have said, we've got 12 buildings on here, 60 units total. We've tried to orient the units to have a front and a back. The garage is the back. The front is the porch and the main entry off the road. There was some talk about the last time we were here, the porches and the style of the doors. Can you go to the elevation slide? Yeah, the elevations. So we looked at the garage doors, and adding windows to the garage doors didn't seem like it fit with the aesthetic of the project. So we broke them up a little bit more. Before they were just horizontal flat panel in the upper right. And then the corner units were also talked about as being maybe a spot for porches, but we've treated the corner units a little bit different with carrying that bay around the side of the building. And there's, with this product type, is just limited space for real porches. And so we're banking on the amenity space that's located throughout the space to satisfy that. The relief and materials weren't talked about last time, but well, the relief was, can you go to the perspective, please? One of the perspective. So this is the 4-unit building. We have 4-unit building and 5-unit and 6-unit buildings. So this is the building, our elevation 2 is the back, the garage side. So you can see we've looked at the garage door, provided a little bit more in tune with which I'll ask for, a carriage style. And we've also got a bay projecting above the garage to break up the flat elevation in the back. Elevation 1, the end units are pulled forward and the middle 2 units are pushed back on that to provide relief off the sidewalk and off the street and to break up that elevation. And we can look at the 6-unit elevation as well. and the perspective, I'm sorry. There it is. Yep. So a little bit longer building, but same idea. And you can see the corners, how we treated those on this. And with that, I think that addresses all the comments that we had.
Um, is this a flat roof where the condenser units are going?
That's right. The back half is,
And I know you do a good job in detailing from, what we've already seen. So I assume electrical panels and all that will be concealed.
they will be. The meter center, because of this product type, the meter center will be on the outside, but we will shield it via landscaping or a panel in front of it. But that's kind of nature of the beast with this product style.
And do you feel comfortable with, drainage away from the building, that you don't need any kind of stoop at the front door?
Well, we've got awnings over all the doors.
But I'm just talking about the drainage. I mean, you're gonna pitch away from the building and
Yeah, the amount of room we have there is limited at the entry. So I don't know if we could have a true stoop.
I think by code, you can either have to have a stoop though, or you won't have any drainage away from the back. To the
Yeah, I think there's drainage away from the door.
I would also ask you to take a look at the UDO. I believe the UDO requires at least a stoop. And again, it's more pragmatic and practical solution for drainage and rainwater versus aesthetics.
Okay.
So I would ask you to take a look at that. I have confidence that, you'll pick the right decision on that.
Well, you'd be 1% slope on your stoop and then go to 8% on your ramp away from the stoop.
Gotcha. Okay. We can take a look at it.
I think you did a good job, getting rid of the flat elevation with some of the details. So, anybody else have any comments?
Agreed. I like the way it looks. I think you did a good job with that. And it fits with everything else that's going on in that center. So I think it was good.
Thank you.
Any other comments, discussions? Okay, if there are none, is there a motion for approval of this preliminary design?
Yes. Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Can we do final at a staff level only?
I think I almost give them final here, couldn't
Or final now? That'd be,
I?
The comment.
Yeah, with comments.
comments.
The only comment was on the stoop. Well, why don't we amend the motion to make it final? With the comments noted on.
I mean, with this project, sort of being infill, I don't think there's an issue with granting final approval. Staff will check into the, stoop requirement. I think you're correct, Peter, but I also think that there's a certain distance that, clarifies that stoop requirement. So, but I can definitely handle that. And then, finalizing the landscaping and everything can be handled at a staff level through the site disturbance permit. So I'm fine with y'all moving forward with final if that's what you feel is appropriate.
Okay, do you want to amend your,
Yes.
Motion?
Motion for final with comments. That's that as well.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Good project.
Okay, wait for Chris.
Got Boone Road? No, Central Avenue.
Next is 801 Central Avenue.
All right, so this property has not come before y'all yet. This is the first time they are requesting preliminary approval. It is a small scope of work, so staff felt it was appropriate for them to go ahead and request preliminary, as this is an existing residential structure with existing access that's going to be turned into a beauty salon. If the rear property line is not being abandoned, the 5-foot landscape buffer must be met on the back of the lot. Encroachment of the 30-inch oak tree must be evaluated by the town arborist and potentially tree protection board before any site disturbance permits are issued. If the fence shown in the front yard and shown on the elevations is not see-through, the height is limited to 3 feet tall. It's presently designed at 4 feet. Fencing in the side and rear yard are not subject to this requirement. And I have discussed with the applicant that the site will need lighting and bicycle parking. And we are working through those items currently. So I will hand it over to the applicant. Just let me know where you'd like me to jump to in the submittal.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So my name is Rob Harlow. I'm with Benchmark LDS and I'm representing for 801 Central. It's an existing lot. It has a vacant house on it right now. The photos you see right now are the areas around it, the abutters and across the street. We do not expect to be changing anything as far as the footprint goes. We are going to be doing a total rehab on this. Changing the footprint is not really in the cards. We are taking the roof off, putting a whole new roof on with structure, taking all the siding off, really basically gutting it and bringing it all up to date with new siding, appropriate roof, parking and lighting. The interior is going to be designed according to the plans as far as the salon goes. I'd like to speak on the salon, but I cannot. As far as the rear lot goes, that rear lot line, that property behind them is still owned by the current owners. And we are looking into the possibility of taking that and making it one complete lot. That also gives us the advantage of maybe if in the near future, we'll be able to expand some of the parking if needed. We don't plan on changing anything as far as the window looks or what the windows are now. Actually, we're keeping the windows, not the windows themselves. We're keeping the window openings and we'll be putting new windows into them so that the whole look of the original house, other than a newer modern looking house, is going to remain the same. The neighborhood won't see anything much different other than the exterior of the parking area.
You're gonna maintain the exposed rafter tails.
Pardon?
The rafter tails right now are exposed. You're gonna leave them just like
Yes.
that with no boxing.
Exactly as you see it there, exposed
Okay.
rafter tails.
I like that. That's good.
Like the windows are matching with this one as well.
We are keeping the existing look of the windows. The style, this, I believe it's 6/6.
I think so, yeah. And the tree encroachment that was mentioned, is that the one that's just off the property by the driveway?
I believe, and which tree was that, Becca? That would be, yes, the one right on the property line.
The gravel lot.
That's a gravel lot, yes. It's gonna have gravel lot, gravel walkways, and a ADA ramp in the back for rear entry.
All right, any comments?
Becca, are fences allowed on the front edge of the property?
Yes, that was what I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the staff report, is just that if the fence isn't see-through and it's in the front yard, it just has to come down to 3.5 feet. Right now, it's proposed as 4 feet, but we can work on that at a staff level, keep the same intent, or if there's a design that you would prefer they go with, that can be noted and handled at staff.
It's a slatted fence. There is space between it. How much is, it can be seen through, but obviously if it's not appropriate enough to see as much as, would be required, we were kind of hoping not to always expose the street to everything in the parking lot.
Just out of curiosity, there's not sewer available there? You have a
Yes,
septic tank.
and I'm sorry, there is sewer available. Yes, it is sewer. Yes.
So the septic tank that's an incorrect statement on the drawing.
No, the septic tank is being
Relocated.
removed. Actually, the drawing, I'm hoping the drawing says remove.
Says remove, okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, all that's going to be removed.
Grease trap and septic,
Yes.
okay.
Is there a landscape plan?
Yes, I believe that's page
Can we
3.
review that?
Is that sheet 3? That's the tree protection and the sill fencing. There we go.
Can you describe it?
So in the question was about the rear lot. So right now, as you can see there, that is owned, that whole entire area is owned by the same owners. The 5-foot buffer, we're saying wasn't really going to be needed there. One, because it's the owners, and two, we're going to try and make it one complete lot. Again, that also helps with expansion as far as parking goes if we need that in the future. The 5-foot buffer along the sides and a 6-foot 6-foot fence on each side. As far as the plants themselves, I would like to be able to tell you I know a lot about landscaping, but that's why we have a great landscaper doing it.
So the rendering really doesn't reflect the extensive landscape.
Actually, it tries to represent it very closely. If you look at the front, what I can tell you is when we did the rendering, the type of flowers and the type of blooms that you see on the rendering in front does match the intent of the landscaping itself.
And just back on ownership. So the front lot and the lot to the right or the rear lot are both owned by the same person.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Any other
you're
comments?
putting landscaping on the back lot.
I'm sorry?
You're putting landscaping on the back lot.
Yes,
Off the
that's
front.
owned, right. And that was, I talked about it with the landscaper to run that past, again, it's owned by the same owner and run it past. So there's a sense of,
Continuity, so that's good.
thank you, continuity.
And can you run through the material? There's no more questions on site stuff. What are the new siding materials and what's the new roofing?
So we're going to be siding it in hardy board planking, lap board, just as it is now. It's going to come in as primed, and it's going to be a Charleston white when it's finished. Actually, the entire material for the outside is going to be a hardy board. The trim, the molding, the siding itself. The roof is going to be asphalt shingle. Same color, newer. It's going to be black on white. The front and the front porches and the rear porch are all going to be done over. Again, the roofs are going to be taken off and reconstructed there. The metal, there's ornamental metal, if you can tell, there's ornamental wrought iron railings that are on the front. They're keeping those. We're going to be cleaning those up and repainting those. The foundation itself, instead of just showing the block, is going to be painted with a gray.
Any other comments?
I like it.
Thank you.
It's nice.
They're asking for preliminary approval. My opinion is they have substantially done everything we would have asked them to do. I think a final approval would be appropriate.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If there's conditions they need to work out with staff.
I guess my only question would be reducing the landscape, that 5-foot buffer that we were talking about. Staff doesn't have the ability to waive that requirement. The DRB does, so that would just be something that y'all would need to consider if you want to grant final approval. So I have
We can
direction.
do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion for final approval with the conditions that, minor conditions you may have to work out with staff, and that the 5-foot buffer between parcels is not required.
Second that
Right.
motion.
No, I don't think they understand. It's the front,
Front parcel.
that's the point, front parcel to the rear parcel. Sure, yeah. All right, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Was there a question about the fence height?
I think
Not for.
We can
What's that
handle that
covered?
at staff.
staff will work that out.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, I missed who seconded that.
Candy.
Thank you.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good luck with it.
All right, next is 515 Boone Hill Road.
Okay, this project is coming before y'all for conceptual review. It is new construction of 2 multi-use flex buildings on an existing vacant site. I'll go over my staff comments. Due to the size of, this is at 515 Boone Hill Road. Due to the size of the buildings and the amount of parking shown, this project may require the approval of the Tree Protection Board. This must be assessed and confirmed prior to the project going before the DRB for preliminary approval. If any exceptions or reductions to the required buffers and landscaping are proposed per section 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6, as they appear to be, they should be specifically called out in future applications to the DRB with justification provided. We have met with the applicant to discuss landscaping and our options, and that's going to be an ongoing discussion with this project. In addition to the sidewalk requirement for connectivity on the side of the property, which I believe is Luden Drive, correct?
Yes.
Luden Drive and Boone Hill. I've heard back from SCDOT recently. We're gonna have further discussions, just so the board is aware, the applicant was informed by SCDOT that they would not approve a sidewalk that didn't connect to an existing sidewalk. So we are not willing to waive that requirement. So we're working with the applicant and SCDOT to figure out a solution so we can have that connectivity as required by the UDO. Another comment that we discussed with the applicant was to consider reducing the parking, as it appeared it might be overparked in the interest of preserving natural buffers and existing grand trees. Parking is only permitted in the side and rear of GB zoned properties. So that will be something you're going to need to consider in reviewing this project, as DRB has the purview to allow parking in front of the building. If the property lines are to be abandoned between the 2 buildings, the plat would need to be recorded prior to permitting. I mentioned the sidewalk requirements. In relation to the architecture, this comment has come up before. If roll-up garage doors are utilized, staff would just advise and remind the applicant that truck terminals and distribution centers are not permitted within GB zone districts. However, warehousing is permitted. And that is all I have. So I will hand it over to the applicant and you just let me know where you'd like me to jump in the presentation.
I think if we can go, I'm not sure. I'm Gary Barini. I'm with Hoyt and Barini. Matt Prosser, sorry, is also with Hoyt and Barini, and Steve Morey with Design Build. Chris Carpus is the engineer, the architect on the project, and he was unable to be here. So I think it's important when I talk about this, it's 43,000 square feet. It's a neighborhood flex facility. And I think everyone here is aware of the location. I think across the street, a convenience store was just recently permitted. We feel like this area is a growing area. There's a need for local businesses to have a place where they could call, home, and therefore the reason and need for a flex facility. And with the flex facility, we're talking about the type of users that have, materials delivered and stored. Not speaking down to the board, but attorney offices or retail or restaurant or something of that sort. So what we wanted to do is to have a patron area for parking and then a service area for parking. And the layout with parking in front of the building allows us to separate the two. It also allows us some flexibility to save some of the large trees on Central Avenue. It also gives us the ability to provide, and we talked about the excess parking. It allows us the ability to put some patio areas in the front should we get a bakery or a restaurant or whatever that wants some outdoor seating, and they're not looking at a service area with a bunch of operations going on, deliveries of whatnot and trash pickup. I think go to the rendering, I think. That's how the local business is, right? So again, the intention, and I don't know why in the rendering we chose to show a bunch of puddles in our parking area, but they're and we do have adequate drainage. We provided in our and we're seeking conceptual a brick wall across the front. It's important to note that the project does slope away from Central Avenue, and it's important because the building will not be. I'm sorry. Boone Hill. Sorry. Correct. But it's important to note that the road is higher than the building itself, and that the brick wall that's to conceal the parking area will in effect have a greater value than if the property itself were raised. So and then there's a large pond way back in the back area that's off-site also. There are some solutions that we can talk about relative to the sidewalk. I envision this property being more ruralish to the community, to meander a sidewalk back and forth along the frontage, and keep some of the existing trees, in that area, so it would be more pedestrian friendly for a walk. Would you want to speak to architecture?
I can't speak to architecture. I guess if you'll go back to the rendering.
If you would state your name.
Steve Morey with Design Build. What we try to do with the elevations of the buildings, because they are very long, one is 310 feet long, and the other one is 355 feet long, is step out the middle and the two ends a couple feet, have them picked up higher, and using different materials in all the different areas of the building. Now, there is some replication. Both buildings don't mirror exactly one another because of the length of the building, but the theme is same from one building to the next, is what we were trying to replicate, and we were going to use along the same lines with the materials within the screen wall across the front of the property for screening of the parking. Well, and the main reason for also us doing what we're doing with enhancing the front side of the building is because for the service doors of the overhead doors on the back, just not wanting the general public where deliveries and equipment coming in and out of the back of the doors of the spaces in the same places where the customers would be coming in and out of.
So they're just asking for conceptual. here to, you know, give them initial thoughts and, that sort of thing. I will say that the, Sphinx across the street, I think did a very good job of looking like it belongs in the Low Country. Yeah. The Sphinx across the street did a very good job and looking like a building that reflects Low Country architecture and aesthetic. They saved a lot of pine trees on that front corner. And they did a really good job of working around trees. I think there's an opportunity here for this to be better. I think it is a whole lot of development on the site. And can you go to a site plan too, Becca? To me, it seems like there's just too much development on here. And the tree that's being worked around on the right-hand side, I think is a 46.6-inch live oak. I looked at the tree protection. That tree protection, I think, if I'm doing it correctly, should go all the way to the building front. So I think it's probably 10 or 12 feet of protected area around it between the tree and the building. It needs to be a lot more than that. I think seems like it's really overparked. I mean, y'all might can explain how you got to the number you are providing.
Ask them what the ratio is.
Yeah, what's the ratio? It's about.
Yeah, we understand that from a concept. We're not sure it's a flex building, so we're not sure what the tenant mix is going to be. So we wanted to show our client what his parking density could be. We're more than happy to back off the parking density, and obviously we probably would back off the parking density in the rear of the building.
All right, appreciate that. I think there's on the left-hand side along Loudon Drive, it seems like the buffer is really small. It seems like there's an opportunity to save more of that side, especially coming from Loudon. I'm concerned about the buffer along Boone Hill. Looks like it's utility easements. So I don't know. I think the way the ordinance reads is if you have utility easements along the front that comprise a certain percentage of the buffer, that the buffer has to be outside of those easements.
30%.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like there's an opportunity there for more buffer. Architecturally.
And I think we can provide that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an opportunity to kind of like push things plan south, and obviously we can improve on the area plan west and create a little more buffer on that side. There is a significant elevation change from the front to the rear, which is difficult to make work in that one connection. And those 2 points of access, ingress, egress are dictated by DOT.
Understood. I'm not really favorable of the parking in the front. I'd rather have the buildings pushed up, although protecting the trees, and parking in the rear. I think there's another big tree on the left-hand side as well that's not really being shown. It's like a 15, 13, 11, 4 live oak on the left. So I'm curious about that. Architecturally.
Of note that you probably haven't looked at, we have had all the trees on the site graded, and we have paid particular attention to the A's and B's.
Okay, that's fair. Architecturally, it seems like in this part of town, it's not the appropriate architecture for me with the flat roof, and it looks like it's a shopping center because it kind of is, but I'd be more in favor of pitched roofs on the corners and maybe a flat roof in between or something, but it doesn't look appropriate to me. Now that's just my thoughts. There's a lot of other people on the board too.
Yeah. So let me say that I'm not a fan of parking in the front at all. Okay. So somebody who uses that road and drives by there every single day. When you if you're coming from town, this is not an area, we have gas stations there, but it's not a business area. I think we can do a whole lot better to make this fit in. it's mostly, as you drive up to get here, you're going to see neighborhoods. It's not businesses. And so I think we're going to have to work hard to get this to look the way that it needs to look to fit in here. Again, parking in the front, that's gonna be a hard sell for me.
I understand that, and I understand that premise in a lot of areas. You know, I understand it by Azalea Square. I understand it, you know, in a high density area, with lots of shops. The fact that this is a large parcel, you know, if this were a Food Lion development, we'd be looking at it differently. But this is a flex development, which is, if you look at the area and the need in that area, there's a large need in that growing area for local businesses. We're not talking about corporate businesses necessarily moving into.
And no denial on that part. It just is going to have to look right.
I agree.
Coming through, we're residential.
Right.
And then you go through and then you've got a high school, you've got, you know, and I'm not saying that many of these things look any better that are existing, don't get me wrong. But if we're going to move forward with progress and we're going to guide the way this is going to look, and again, I think we're going to have to.
If I may, just with my and we're here for conceptual and we're trying to get to the same point. What I don't like to see is a wall of a building. I don't care how we decorate it. This is going to be a long wall along that frontage. And we could have a bunch of trees and whatnot, but it's really not inviting to the community. So I took the liberty, if I may, to show this development. With building in front. We have a hard time pushing the building. I mean, obviously we don't have to go all the way up, you know, to our setback. We could have it in terms of that and save some of the trees. But this plan does a better job of saving some of the existing vegetation that's there. I would rather see us focus on aesthetics of the building and landscaping and maybe some arterial type fencing and whatnot to improve the aesthetics of the site and draw the patrons into the site. The importance of traffic flow on the site as well. We have I think an awesome traffic flow on this particular project, and it affords the ability to have at least one drive-through on one side of the project.
And again, you have the traffic flow for the site, but if you live here, the traffic flow on 17 is not great. And even with the help of the new parkway that's open, at certain times of the day, you're at a standstill right there, right in front of where you'll be. So just keep that in mind.
Well, and that site plan doesn't consider the trees, the existing trees, the large live oaks that we talked about. So that building wall on that site plan in your hand, there's going to take a chunk out of the building because to work around the trees.
Correct. And when you look at what that takes out of it, if I may, you look at what that takes out of the density of that building is this piece would be taken out. So you'd have a building, a large gap, and then another building, and you almost cut a third of the density
You're
out
correct.
of that project.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Somerville is known for its live oaks and its architecture. This plan does not accomplish that. I mean, that's my thoughts. Love to hear what anyone else on the board has to say.
I tend to agree with the board comment so far. And as far as the comment you just made, if you go away from this long linear building, which I think I would object to if it was presented in the future because of the length of the same building. I haven't seen any renderings that really show that length, but you talked about the live oaks, you can easily turn the building and not lose GLA. And you can, you can play with the building configuration and not just keep it rectangular and efficient. Because we do think, you do need the GLA to support it. And we're not looking to reduce that.
You gotta come up here.
Part of the issue with doing that and turning the buildings and that sort of thing is then you're starting to face the service side of the buildings to the more of the general public where everybody's.
Again, I'm not looking to solve the issue. I'm just saying there are alternatives.
Yes, sir.
So until we see, and it doesn't, maybe those end sections are just deeper. Not different tenants, not turn tenants,
Maybe it's a different
you know,
building configuration, different
type of
square footage.
flex space.
And again,
And not, I think you're really caught up in, this is the front, this is the back, and these are the sides. And I think I'm trying to say that if you open your vision a little bit more, you'll be able to see that you won't lose GLA, which we know is sacred, but yet take into account all the board comments about, sensitivity to the pedestrian, sensitivity to the residential neighbors adjacent to you or further down, and how the neighborhood is predominantly one, and then it gets to your block, which is fine. We're not objecting to the flex space at all.
To me, it needs to look like, and you said earlier, it looks like kind of neighborhood retail or neighborhood flex space. It doesn't look like that. I think architecturally, Mr. Carpus did a good job for what he was given, but it's not the right solution for this part of town. There's the Sphinx looks, it's got a peaked roof. It looks really good. There's a couple of buildings next to it that are residential in nature that look really good. This, to me, is an outlier. And the other big thing that Becca brought up is the sidewalk along the front. I think, to me, that's a given. I see you probably see a lot more than I do. I see a lot of kids walking down that street, and then they can't. And we haven't really considered that pedestrian now, or that student. Now is our time to do that. And I think that has to be one of the things you work around. So are there any other comments we can?
How's that big lake that's there, big pond now? How's it play with this site?
I'm sorry, one more time.
There's a big lake there.
Yeah.
Pond,
This
huge.
used to be the Jenkins property.
Yep.
And there's a big lake there. Where's it on this site? It's not on.
It's playing south.
Is it on Doug Miles' property?
It's not that, that's where our detention's going. It's the big pond's south, correct?
Where's the pond at?
Correct, right
Where the
there,
cursor is,
where the little hand is.
Yeah,
it's off the
Yeah,
property.
it's off the property.
it's all off the property?
Correct,
Totally off your property.
correct.
Okay.
And so from playing south, that whole area is buffered by, the surroundings from that.
Well, you can
from
see
that
the pond from Boone Hill Road. You can see the pond.
You can definitely see it from Loudon.
Definitely see it from Luton. That's more,
Correct,
you won't affect Luton.
correct.
Okay.
So I heard you say that you guys located the total site as much planned north as possible to increase the preservation of trees on the planned south side, right?
No.
Okay. I thought you had said there was some reason why you couldn't take the whole layout and pull it. a little
So we
closer
could,
south.
we could bring it down some.
Okay.
There's a buffer, and that's a great point. We could increase the buffer in the front, but we'd have to get a variance for the buffer in the rear. And we could display, and show how that buffer in the rear is truly our buffer and the adjoining property, because it's a big pond with a vegetated area around it. So that would solve some of the buffering to the front.
Can they do that? Can they?
You're referring, this is the landscape buffer that you're referring to?
Correct.
So the DRB is the entity that has the purview to allow that buffer to be decreased.
Be reduced. Yeah.
We could straighten our drive, and make it more linear as well.
But they can't share the buffer with the adjacent parcel.
No,
Right.
What is the zoning of these, summer zoning or
This is GB. General business.
adjoining properties GB also
It is, are you talking about to the south?
to the south?
It's residential. That's why the buffer is
buffer's
30.
Never
Great.
gonna be
Why
developed.
don't you talk to Doug Miles and get him to change the zone? That'll help you a lot.
I think it'd be easier to
What-
request
what
the
I-
board to
It don't
allow
need
us to
be-
reduce that buffer.
This property does not need to be residential zoning.
No,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. But again, it's a pond. It's not going to be used for anything other than a pond,
Are you
Yeah.
draining to that for your
We are.
stormwater management?
right?
Yes.
Okay. The point that I'm trying to get to, I guess, is there any way to kind of pull the whole layout, plan south globally, create space for that pedestrian sidewalk, incorporate more landscape buffering or trees to remain along the road frontages? I see where you're coming from with the reason why the layout is the way it is. It's a very linear site. I don't like that alternative that you showed, but you have to convince the entire board, not just me. So I guess this is maybe a more of an open question for the board, like if they can activate more space along the right of way. I mean, are we more comfortable with parking being in the front, or is that a non-starter?
For me, I think I am in favor of more buffer along the front. I'm not in favor of parking along the front. I think they can bring the buildings closer, they can provide more of a buffer, and they put all the parking in the back. I think this is too important a road. And we've got to get it right. And neither of those plans are right. I mean, I want to tell you now and not you guys come back with.
No, I completely appreciate that. My vision, and so I see it differently. I see it as a big building pushed up to the street, and I'm looking at a wall. So I understand that. I understand I confuse, non-walking patrons of where the entrance is to my building. So I get that. I don't like having, the fake front doors. I don't like that. And that's what we end up pushing our businesses, to do. And again, I see this as we're not Charlotte, but you drive the streets of Charlotte in the older neighborhoods, and there's large trees up front, they're overhanging. The parking lots are screened by these screen walls. The landscaping, contributes to that, and then the architecture does. I feel like this project would be better for the community if we did more landscaping, created more buffering, and had a patron area that they used in a service area that was used for the service purposes.
How deep is the building? So they got to have a back door
Yes, sir.
for egress. So you gotta have your back, if you push the building up to the street, you still gotta have a back door on the street. Then your front door would become in the parking lot, but you still gotta have a door there just for egress.
There's
And our
plenty of
difficulty is-
examples of where that's been done
Loading.
successfully. If there's no new comments, I think we need to move on.
Sure.
I think the one bad thing about pushing it towards the street is then you limit what really, as far as business wise, will want to go into the space. And you pretty much eliminate any small business that's any kind of service kind of industry of people where they're taking deliveries and doing those sorts of things. You pretty much eliminate all those to where it only becomes retail or professional office space, which quite frankly, like you said, there's not a whole lot of business in that area, so you don't really have the client doesn't necessarily have a great way to attract those type of businesses to there because there's nothing else there to doing those kind of operations.
So we hear you and I understand that. And for you, you said, well, it looks like a wall there, but a parking lot, as Chris said, is just not going. So I don't know, when you go back, you look at some alternatives so that when you drive by, You can buffer, you can do whatever you want to, but it's gonna be a parking lot
And
in
it,
front
it
of it.
might be a hybrid. Maybe some of the buildings go all the way up to the wall and they're just, or up to the front, and then there's some that are set back. I think y'all are
Make it
dialed in with this
millennial,
building and
yes.
making this building fit, and this isn't the right building.
Buildings can be broken up, and that's fine. Then you also worry, again, back to where you're taking, like, delivery type trucks occupying and going through the same areas as all clients and that sort of stuff.
Right, there's a lot of things to consider.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, retailers want to see parking in that's visible from the for the public. Because the public is not going to pull in if they don't see parking. And that's why the
I think
parking lot in
that's a
front
little,
is
I think
good.
that's a little dated, with all respect, because
Well,
there's.
that was the theory, 15 years ago when I worked for
But you got-
developers, but.
It may be so, if only we were looking at Boone Hill Road now.
Yeah.
Loudon Drive now is the happening spot because we have opened that parkway.
Yeah.
So we're not talking just Boone Hill. We're talking Loudon Drive, where you can see if you turn down Loudon that there's going to be parking.
But there's no frontage on Loudon.
There's plenty of spaces on 17A as you're going towards Monk's Corner where the building's up on the road, the parking's behind,
Absolutely.
sandwich shops, all kinds of stuff. So it
And
works.
those are retail and sandwich shops only, but there's not any service type.
That's why I'm saying maybe it's a hybrid plan where you have some retail, because I think retail would be successful here. There's people looking for coffee and sandwiches and kids going to ice cream shops. And there's also a need for kind of the service that you're talking about. So that's all I have to say.
That's it. So you understand the point of where we're coming from. So I think we could go back and forth all night long with it, but,
But, all right, any
the
other
point
questions?
is,
for us?
yeah.
We have, and anyone else would like to speak to this project? One in the back.
I didn't know. I'm involved with this building and Candy, did you recuse? Yes, good. Yes, and she didn't know, I didn't know it was on the agenda. Anyway, so Mansour Rastian and I own this property. We bought it from Sunoco. And they have a lot of restrictions of what you can do there and what you can't do there. You can't sell chicken sandwiches. You can't sell tacos. So there's all kind of restrictions. Don't ask me why, but there's only so much you can do here. I would think maybe solve some of what you're saying by push the building up and leave one row of parking. Maybe something like that. And that would open up the back a little bit. But we do prefer more of a business park with a retail front. But in deference to what some of you said about Boone Hill Road, there's really nothing going on there. I wish there were. It's a 2-lane road. How much retail is going to go there? I don't think too much. I've got 2 listings out there right now, Deadsville. So I would just ask that you consider maybe a compromise, 1 row of parking across the front and push the buildings up some and give you some vegetation and something like that. So that's what would help us. Otherwise, I don't know that we can. I think of buildings all the way to the street. I think of out there by Fort Dorchester, where that little where Gianni's restaurant used to be, where they pushed that building all the way to the street. And they for years struggled keeping that thing full. So
And
I'm not a big fan of all the way to the front. If we have to, then we'll have to, but maybe a hybrid.
Maybe. And
Give us some parking in the front.
That's a good point. And, but I don't think we're saying the building has to go all the way up to the property line. None of us are saying that. It's just, we don't want to see as much parking as we're seeing. So maybe there's a hybrid plan, and y'all may want to come back with 3 alternatives, and don't surprise us with them. Just bring it. I mean, just show it, and let's talk through those plans.
But we've got time. We've got time. I just want you to know a business park to me feels better than straight retail.
Sure.
And we've got all these restrictions from Sunoco.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain things you cannot do. I'm not sure if coffee's on that list, but it might be. Certainly no petroleum.
I think your office warehouse use is the best rather than retail. I don't even see retail going there.
Amazon's killing retail, whether you've known it or not.
office retail, office warehouse. That's the slam dunk. That's the going thing right now.
And that's what it's.
It's leasing better in Robert, office retail, office warehouse leasing better than retail, ain't it?
It's,
Most sites.
it seems like that's what fits.
Yeah,
And but we tried to give it a nice looking front with Chris Carpus. So that, you would,
Yeah.
it would look good, but you're gonna have a roll up door in the back,
yeah.
So just help us have a little parking in the front and I think maybe we can get home. And I'm sorry, my wife is gonna kill me because I didn't know this was on the agenda. And I hope she's out on this one, so.
You got a party to go to 5:30.
All right, thank you very much. We don't vote for conceptual. So it's just comments and
Appreciate your comments.
thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, y'all. I gotta take a nature break.
I think they're bringing years.
Are the applicants here for the next agenda item? For the multifamily on Holiday Drive? No? Okay. All right, we have everyone back. If we're ready to reconvene.
All right, Sounds like the old Light Road apartment folks are not here, so we're gonna move that to the end. So up next is 500 North Main Street.
Okay, so I'm sure you all are familiar with this project, but I'll briefly go over my very limited staff report. So this is a conceptual review of the redevelopment of the existing Dorchester County office site, 500 North Main. This previously was in the historic district, but was removed per council. So that applicant and staff have been working together on design requirements for quite some time. Excuse me, the designation of the historic district, moving it out of the historic district does not change anything about the zoning. So the zoning requirements have remained the same throughout the life of this project. But I don't have anything as this is conceptual at this time. So I will hand it over to our applicant.
Becca, I have a clarification question. So
Yes, sir.
with it being removed from the historic district, does that mean the old hospital portion is not under the old historic district preservation?
So if the developer were interested in demolishing the entire site, they would not have to get any approval. They could apply for a demolition permit tomorrow if they wanted. But they are coming before you to talk about redeveloping the site. I believe there are some deed restrictions that they're going to go over with y'all regarding the historic portion of the building on the site. But to answer your question, I don't know if that was a yes or a no, but it does not, they do not have to get approval to demolish the site, every building on the site. That answer your question, Peter?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Becca, and thank you, members of the board. Thank you for the summary of where this project has been. My name is Robert Poppleton. I'm with the Furman Company. We are the developer for the project. I will quickly just add to a little bit of what Becca mentioned. There are restrictions on some portions of the existing structure of the old hospital that protect certain elements ongoing with the property. And so I'll mention that a little bit more and we can point out those elements in the presentation. So in brief, because you may be familiar with this, however, I'm happy to get into any of the history that may come as part of the conversation this evening. Yes.
I think you should assume we're not familiar with it. I mean, we're familiar in that we live here and we drive by it, but in terms of what you are trying to do.
Perfect. Thank you,
not
Chris.
familiar.
Yes. So we have, the Furman Company's been involved at this site for the last 3 years. The county went through an extensive study of repositioning the site predating the Furman Company's involvement. They went through, and actually the project architects who are with us tonight, Heather Mitchell and George Schaefer of Boudreaux, were also involved in the initial planning studies more than 5 years ago, beginning more than 5 years ago. So the site, as you know, it represents a lot of potential. When the Furman Company got involved, we studied in answering the RFP that the county issued. We studied the zoning and designed to the zoning in place. The result of that, and working with the criteria that was presented to us from the county, the result of that was a very dense site, more dense than what you see by a good deal in the presentation material this evening. Over the last 3 years, what has caused a lot of that change, we've gone through many iterations. And it was a combination of several different exchanges with members of the community. As Becca mentioned, this used to be in the historic district, so we met several times with the BAR and took their feedback, surveyed feedback from the community, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, and listened to the county leadership and town leadership, and went through, as I mentioned, many different iterations to arrive to where we are. One of the things we sought to get right very early on was being sensitive to the historic nature of the hospital on the premises. We have arrived in following a process between town council and county council to commit to preserving the most key features as we have understood from the community of the hospital structure. That is the central portion we refer to as the portico that is in line with the existing Veterans Memorial when you're looking off of Main Street, as well as portion of the south-facing facade. The future uses proposed for this site are primarily the future services building for county administration. That is a 3-story, 40,000 square foot office building, and that will be done upon approval in the first phase together with the planned new public park and the improvements for vehicle circulation and parking. Later phases will include other commercial uses, some Main Street fronting and park fronting retail, a hotel, and some residential brownstones on Cedar, rounding out the site, and future commercial planned at the intersection of Cedar and Fifth. Worth noting, in one of the older iterations, we did have a larger multi-family development, multi-story, more than 150 units. That was one of the pieces of feedback we received pretty loudly from the community, that they prefer a different use there. Specifically, they prefer hospitality. And so that's one of the examples of how this plan has adapted to that feedback. I mentioned earlier that part of the first phase is a new public park. We heard that loud and clear as being a priority, both in the community feedback we heard, knowing and acknowledging that and learning that this can function as a bookend to Hutchinson Square and be another generous green space for public gathering and daily enjoyment. Part of the elements in the park, which we'll get into this evening, include finding a new placement, preserving a place for a Veterans Memorial, but finding it placed within the site in a more accessible space, together with a pavilion for events, a new memorial statue, a statue of a Medal of Honor recipient, and some other amenities. It's actually larger than Hutchinson Square when measured. The new park is 0.9 acres, close to 1 acre. And that is grown from what originally was a lot smaller. And we believe we placed it in the most important visibility corridor on the site. Now, just a brief comment on the historic piece. As I mentioned earlier, there are some limitations on the site. In the summer months following the spring community survey, which we reacted to and eventually got to the version that you see this evening, the county was asked actually, and so we would be developing and acquiring portions of the site from the county to enter into a declaration of restrictive covenants that preserve those historic elements that I described earlier. So as of this, that was voted on by town council in September on the second reading. And that was September 11th. As of this week, that signed declaration has now been recorded and is in effect. So we have a unique situation where we are planning around a restriction that has been put in place. We think a good one, by the way. We feel like this is the right plan after going through the community process over the last 3 years and beyond. But it is a little unique. On top of the restrictive covenants, there is also a memo of understanding between the town and the council that was signed that layers on a few more restrictions, prohibiting certain uses, and also stating that if there's any deviation, meaningful deviation to this plan, to the site concept, then we're out of compliance. So we're dealing with a framework that really is been handed to us from a community process with town council. And I think what we will review and discuss this evening, we feel is a great representation of a series of comments and exchanges with the community, leading up even as recent as last week, following the new direction provided to us by town council. We have now hosted a community meeting, and it was well attended, I believe, and we heard lots of different comments, but a lot of which we look forward to integrating and reacting to in the next level design documents in this process in collaboration with you. But if anything, it was some level of affirmation that what we've heard over the last 3 years is consistent with what we still are hearing from community members today. They want to see green space. They want to make sure the trees that are so important are preserved and planned around. They want a place for gathering. They want to see the activation, that they want view corridors to the historic elements. I think you're going to see and understand a lot of how we've tried to accomplish that. So I'll pause there. Happy to answer any questions you have. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we have Heather Mitchell and George Schaefer both leading our architectural and design process. So thank you.
I have, Andy has to leave, but I have a quick question that may seem minor, but this rendering shows a lot of high rises in the background. This looks like it's Columbia, not Somerville.
I'll have to
What
let
is
the architects answer
kind
that
of
one.
is a little deceptive in terms of the scale of this, because if you kind of compare this to what's in the background, it looks smaller. Can you explain that? But also, I thought I heard you say that town council came into an agreement that said you cannot change the site plan.
That we cannot have a material change from the concept that they approved that also had this concept. I don't think it's as, I mean, there's certain elements that we believe in are working with the understanding that can be changed. But largely that, you know, we can get you a copy of that MOU so you too can understand that in declaration.
Can you articulate right now what is fixed by that agreement?
The most important elements are the portico in the south wing. And everything else was included in discussion together with the uses described. So the office, the retail, the hospitality, and the brownstone and corner commercial that I mentioned earlier.
Any initial comments, or you want to roll into design and
They'll have
architecture?
much more interesting things to say than I did, but I wanted to at least introduce myself and give you the context.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is George Schaefer. I'm an architect with Boudreaux. Thank you for entering in discourse with us about this project today. We, as Robert mentioned, our firm has been in collaboration with Dorchester County for over 4 years to set a vision and guiding principles for this site, and a master plan for this site that really celebrates the past, present, and future of Somerville. And we are fresh off of public input session that we had last week that Robert also mentioned. I believe there's some faces that actually showed up and talked to us last week. So thank you for being there if you attended. And we see the feedback we received last week working in tandem with the discourse today, and your feedback and comments about this project as being critical to this project being a success. As I mentioned, I think we have a really unique opportunity to explore the ways that the history of downtown Somerville can coexist with the ambition and the spirit of downtown mixed-use development that is in your ordinance and covers this site, particularly because we know that there's a lot of history associated with this site. The existing hospital building on the site, the Veterans Memorial, the live oak trees, the pine trees, So the association with the Springs family, so there's a great deal of history specifically associated with this place that provides us a unique opportunity really to think about meeting the ambition of the type of density, placemaking, pedestrian-oriented design that's in the spirit of your downtown mixed-use ordinance, and exploring the ways that those things can coexist in downtown Somerville in a way that serves as a catalyst for future development between our site and Hutchinson Square. So one of the other things that's top of mind for us and has always been about this site is its presence and its context within the larger network of Somerville, and the idea that this site is both a threshold and is a bookend. So we see it as an opportunity to create and really celebrate the character of Somerville as you enter Somerville from the interstate or any of the other directions, but it's also an opportunity to define the limits of your downtown by creating a bookend to Hutchinson Square where those two spaces begin to have a conversation with each other. I will start with also an apology about the context that you see, in particular this rendering. I want to just mention that for most of the architectural character that you see in the imagery that we're showing today, that these are very conceptual imagery. The building that we have given most thought and consideration to is the three-story future county office building. So in this view in particular, aside from the existing building at the heart of the development, most of the other buildings are to be expressive of massing and potential character and materiality, but do not have specific design intent behind them. And we'll certainly address the way that this particular view sits within the existing context in a way that makes it feel more accurate and appropriate. I think maybe we can move to Becca, if we can move just to the survey really quickly, the existing site. So I know everybody's familiar with the existing site. I think really one of the things I just want to mention looking at the survey, which also includes a tree survey and the arborist assessment of all of the trees on site, are just to highlight some of the constraints that we've been working with from the very beginning of this project. Obviously, the existing building is one of those, and not just from a preservation perspective, but also from a phasing perspective. In terms of this master plan, it only works if the new three-story, 40,000 square foot office building for the county can be constructed while this building remains fully operational on site. So that is just wanted to provide that context when you think about how we're locating the office building in particular, but also all of the elements that are on the perimeter. Some of the other constraints that we are also working with are we know that there are future infrastructural improvements planned for 3 of the 4 sides of our site on Cedar, 5th, and Main Street. And so those have an impact on increasing right-of-ways on those edges in some instances, but also provide us a unique opportunity to rethink how we can create safer, more activated pedestrian connectivity on all of the edges of our site. I think let's just jump to the conceptual overlay, just so that we can visualize some of the aspects that Robert mentioned in terms of the components that are a part of this master plan. So you can see sort of in the center is the existing 2-story hospital building, portico and wing that sort of holds the heart of the master plan. It's more or less the sun in the constellation of elements on this site, and really holds that centerpiece. The 40,000 square foot 3-story county office building you see fronts 5th Street and is offset from the corner to begin to create an organizational site strategy that provides the opportunity for that almost acre open space that we see as being really the complement to, and again, that bookend to Hutchinson Square. That open space that you see on the corner of 5th and Main, and mostly fronting Main, is identified at the moment on this plan as containing Welcome Park, which is a more natural envisioned as a more natural veil to the site, taking advantage of the existing pine trees on that corner that have always acted as a veil, a visual veil into the site. And then Meservey Square, which is intended really to be the axial connection between Main Street and the historic hospital two-story portico component that really connects that visually to that edge. The other elements that surround the site, you'll see the future two-story retail that is providing an anchor at the corner of 4th and Main to provide activation both to Meservey Square, to provide a framing element to the existing hospital portico, but also as an opportunity to activate pedestrian engagement for those people approaching from downtown. The 4-story 100-key boutique hotel component that is on 4th Street that is shown currently as being connected to and leveraging the existing hospital portico and wing as a part of that particular component on site. The 3-story residential brownstones that front Cedar Street, and then a 1-story future retail on the corner of 5th Street and Cedar. In terms of like vehicular circulation, the idea for this is that we retain as many of the existing curb cuts as possible. So you can see that we currently have 2 entrances off of 4th and 1 off of Cedar, and the plan aligns with those, even though 2 of them, 1 on Cedar and 1 on the western side of 4th Street, are shifting, are in the master plan, are shifting. I will say that Robert mentioned, so we broadly identified the components that ultimately will be comprise what we're calling phase 1 of the master plan. When we come back to you for preliminary review, we will have a more detailed definition of the boundary and scope of that, but it includes the 3-story office building, obviously the open space that's Welcome Park and Meservey Square, and associated site vehicular improvements, the parking, associated parking with that. So maybe we can jump to get into a little bit more detail about and in conversation about our vision and our ambition for some of the open spaces and the architecture. So Becca, maybe go to the case study imagery for open space, which is the slide after the full text slide. No, keep going down. It's like 10 or 15 slides down. So that 123. So I'd like to just talk about our ambition and our thinking about how we are wanting to create places and spaces to gather in the open spaces that are shown in our master plan. And as we know, the best teacher is Somerville is the best teacher for how we do that. So what you can see here are spaces that inspire us, features that are on site that inspire us and that are going to be amplified in the master plan. The idea that our site as the threshold site has a unique opportunity to define a corner condition, much like Hutchinson Square does, but in a very different way. The existing pine trees that are on that corner have always acted as a veil to the existing hospital building, and that those are preserved and define a more natural space. A blend of both natural areas like you see on the Cedar Street side of the CPW building on the image in the center right, but also very structured outdoor axial and larger gathering spaces like you might find in Hutchinson Square. So to find that unique blend of the natural, the organized, axial, accessibility, discovery, all of those things we envision being important to the open space on our site. We heard, and Robert mentioned, that the community feels like they have outgrown Hutchinson Square. So the idea that this open space could provide an alternate space to gather and perhaps in a different way is really important. And so just like in Hutchinson Square, Robert mentioned that we're planning on having a pavilion component and also larger gathering spaces that allow people to gather and celebrate the Veterans Memorial. Celebrating history on the site is going to be super important. I think Robert mentioned that the Veterans Memorial right now is envisioned to stay on site, but be really relocated to a place that makes it safer, a safer distance from the street, but also brings it into conversation with a natural wooded area, shade, the new county office building, and a larger space to gather and celebrate on those days. The Springs family, the Christopher Seeled's sculpture that is going to be on the site. So the open space will feature many different opportunities for people to reflect on the historic importance of this area. Not to mention the idea that the hospital building in and of itself and the brick provides opportunities for us to think about the ways that that material can be repurposed into architectural and hardscape elements in the park. You can go to the next slide. So we're starting to look at some of the imagery and getting a little bit closer to conceptual views of what these spaces might be. So this is a view on the corner of 5th and Main. Again, Welcome Park being that natural veil, preserving the pine trees, providing an opportunity for signage. And again, these are very conceptual and would love to hear your feedback about these things, but signage that welcomes you not only to this park, but to this place and to downtown Somerville. But that signage also has important use in that it's also a protective feature that shields a very natural space from a very busy vehicular intersection. And again, the idea that this Welcome Park is a series of thresholds and layers and visibility that connects the vehicular and pedestrian experience to the heart of the development, which is the existing 2-story hospital piece. I'm sorry? Yes. I don't know. That's a good question. We were not imagining that it would, but and the verbiage as to what goes on the sign, I think is up for conversation at the moment as well. Like, we want this park to be both the threshold into downtown Somerville and also something that defines the uniqueness of this place. And you can see in this image, the sort of in the foreground between the architectural wall feature and the hospital building in the background, you can see a flagpole and a placeholder at the moment for the relocation of the Veterans Memorial, so that it is in conversation with what we're calling the front porch of the county office building, and much more spacious space to have gatherings and celebrations, but also adjacent to what we think is a very serene and meditative natural aspect of the park, which is Welcome Park. You can go to the next image. As we move down Main Street, you can see how the open space has expanded to include and create a very direct visual view corridor connecting Main Street to the existing hospital, the portion of the existing hospital to remain, with the retail building that's on the corner of 4th and Main Street, sort of helping to create the definition at the end of that park, activate it as well, and a suggestion of what a pavilion might also look like to counterbalance that retail space on the right-hand side of this view. This is the space that in the master plan is identified as Missouri Square. The next slide really kind of visualizes the covenant that Robert was talking about. So you can see in relationship both to the master plan overlay that I've walked through, but also the rendering that I just shared, the extent of the existing building that is to remain both in elevation and in plan.
Question on the plan view, the red area in the plan only shows you saving the front facade of the building. that's what it looks like.
Yeah, so I believe that the detail of the language, and Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, speaks specifically to the facade of those elements, not, and has some leeway in terms of how much of the roof component is included in that. As you can see, as a design team, we feel like it's very important that the roof portion of the two-story center hospital piece be included as a part of that. We feel like that is a mass that defines the center of the master plan. I think as a design team, we're thinking about ways that the wing that comes off of that to the plan south might be thoughtfully integrated into a future hotel, and whether or not a roof there is the way to achieve that. But the language of the covenant speaks only to the facade. The verbiage that's included here is actually pulled directly from it, the covenant.
So you may end up saving more, you just don't know yet. Is that fair? I mean, you may, because the rendering plan view shows kind of the whole core of the building.
Correct.
Is remaining intact.
Correct.
But the red kind of contradicts that.
So it looks, you'd have to reproduce what you're tearing down, so why not just keep it? Makes sense to keep it.
The answer is yes to your specific question. And again, I would just reiterate that we feel like the two-story portion is not about a facade, it's about a volume. And the roof is an important part of that volume.
Is it, so is it fair to say you haven't designed that yet, but you may be saving more? You may be saving all of the white as shown in the plan.
That is a fair statement.
Maybe.
That's a fair statement.
Don't know yet.
That's accurate. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
What is the proposed function of that space?
Well, at the moment, we see it as an opportunity to be the entry threshold for the boutique hotel. So the idea that that is, as you know, that any of you that have gone into that structure, it's currently a two-story. It has a first and second floor. So the idea that potentially the second floor could partially or fully be removed. And so you'd be entering into a much larger volume of space that would be in alignment with what you would expect with a hotel lobby, and sort of like that first threshold into that type of element, which would also contain potentially interior hotel amenity spaces as well. So at the moment, conceptually, because it's adjacent to what we're identifying as the four-story boutique hotel, we see it as being an important sort of protagonist in creating the threshold to that piece, and sort of like the front-facing component of the hotel to Missouri Square.
So does the restricted facade prohibit a hotel sign saying Hilton being mounted on the,
I don't know that there are any restrictions. That's a very good question.
so it could be. So we could see the name of a hotel plastered on that pediment.
I think it's possible, and it certainly wouldn't align with our vision about, I mean, we feel like the hotel presence is on Fourth, the street presence.
What would the developer want?
So that is the second phase, and I agree with what George was saying, that
Yeah, so in concept, I agree with if this is your concern that we would have a large sign that would negatively impact the historic nature of that hotel, I agree that is not our vision. I don't see that the declaration contemplated that specifically, but I think we're in alignment with that, and that would be considered more thoroughly in phase 2 or future phases.
Also, just to chime in, the UDO directly points to sign or prohibits signage covering up important architectural features. So I think that could easily be cited as a very important architectural feature to that building.
And one question, thank you, Becca. The old hospital will now be privately owned. It's not gonna be owned by the county, not owned by the town. It's gonna be privately owned. Is that correct?
It is the intention that it is going to be privately owned. The first phase that we're discussing does not include the ownership of that property.
Okay, so I think we can move on to a brief conversation about how we are thinking about our ambition for the architectural character for this master plan. You can move to the next slide, Becca. And again, I think, as always, the best teacher is the place where we're building. And so these are some of the architectural elements within your urban fabric and some of the character that is most inspiring to us. Obviously, the existing hospital on site is something that is super important to how we think about defining the new architectural character of elements around it. And I hope you'll be able to see some of the ways that we're thinking about from a massing and articulation standpoint, that it is top of mind for us that we honor and relate to that without mimicry. So obviously concepts like hierarchy and fenestration, cornicing, massing, like you see in the lower left-hand image in Hutchinson Square, all of those cues are things that we imagine will be top of mind for us as we take what are conceptual sketches and turn them into detail that you would expect at the preliminary review. On your original town hall building, the idea that the porch element is in and of itself, it can be defining of entry, but also provide prospect via a terrace overlook, which is a component of the office building that we're proposing. And then in general, just the idea of materiality and detail that you see in all of the imagery that we feel like is going to be critical. The upper left-hand image is really important to me as a designer because I feel like it really speaks to the past, present, and future of Somerville, starting with historic Hutchinson Square and then leading to this building, your town hall annex. And for me and for our design team, it's really, we see this as a legacy project. And in terms of a legacy project, we want to understand the lineage of buildings that we want to be a part of. And in thinking about similarly scaled municipal buildings within your downtown area, of course, we have to think about this structure and the CPW building as well. And the fact that for both of those buildings, which I think are unapologetically contemporary, they've also managed to really thoughtfully integrate material, massing, character moves that are what I would say are quintessential to Somerville. And certainly I would love to hear your feedback on whether you read these two buildings that I mentioned in the same way, and how you would see the new county office building as wanting to relate to them in terms of the overall lineage of municipal buildings in downtown. And as we move to other case studies that speak more to contemporary structures of this time, Becca, I think we can move quickly through the next few slides. You can see we're thinking about ways to mask the structure in thoughtful ways so that the scale of what we would call sort of like the articulated base that you'll see in the office building is more comfortably related to the scale of the existing hospital two-story portico, and thinking about ways the material change that you see both in historic buildings and in contemporary structures in Somerville help to make that transition from a three-story building that feels more pedestrianly scaled as 2 stories. So all of these case studies also speak to us about how to create hierarchy in terms of fenestration from the ground floor to the upper levels, and are good examples of how contemporary buildings speak to a finesse in terms of detail when it comes to windows, fenestrations, brick detailing, heads, and
So the purpose of these images are what? They're not associated with Somerville.
they're not associated with Somerville, but they are a part of the stew of case studies and inspirations that we are looking at and looking to when we think about ways to approach certain aspects of this project. And I hope maybe you'll see that when we speak specifically about what we're showing. So Becca, you can move to the next one. Again, these are contemporary versions of buildings that speak to and use and leverage
historic strategies for scale, detailing, materiality, and then the final slide, ideas
can
of
you-
how.
Can you describe what you think Somerville architecture is all about? And not show us other contemporary. So what do you think it is?
I don't like these.
Yeah. I'd agree.
What do you think the essence of Somerville architecture is?
I think Somerville is, the word I would use to describe Somerville is simple and refined. So I feel like when I think of Somerville, I think about the material character. That would be one. So obviously brick is an important component of that. I would think about not overly ornate architectural elements or character. So in terms of the way that fenestration is defined, storefronts are designed on street edges, that there's a real strategy to how there's a hierarchy from the ground floor up to cornices, and that all of those elements are thoughtfully designed, but not over designed. So I think that's how I think about the quintessential.
Can you go back to the Hutchinson Square
Sure.
images? So what you point out is past, present, and future. That is ornate. That does have historic reference.
Sure.
So I somewhat disagree with your summary that Somerville is not ornate and simple.
I hear what you're saying, and I guess what I'm thinking about is the existing hospital on our site. And I think about the CPW building and the way that Dave interpreted and how to apply detail in that project. When I look at most of these, you're right, the building on the bottom left-hand corner and then the right side of the upper right-hand corner image has some extraordinarily ornate detailing and elements in it. That does exist in Somerville. I also feel like there's a lot of very simple detailing strategies that for me feels quintessentially Somerville. I think for our project, I guess what I would say is the challenge for us is what is the right level of detail for this in particular? How do you translate the level of detail that you see in buildings that are scaled in the way that you show them? You see it here to a 3-story new county office building, and that's something we would love your feedback on as you see the initial moves that we've made.
I would say if you could go to the precedent images, the 128, 129, I would say none of those speak to me as belonging in Somerville.
Okay.
I mean, I get the floors recede back as you go up. I understand that, but they don't look appropriate for Somerville. Becca, could you go to the next one? Particularly, maybe there's one more, I guess, but particularly the way the pavement, and maybe you're trying to show something that I'm not picking up on, but particularly the way the brick just goes straight into concrete.
Yep.
Or paving. Now it doesn't touch the square, but that sidewalk is 8 feet wide or whatever it is, So that material going from hard material to another hard material isn't successful to me. And I'm not an architect, let me say that, but I don't think that we are looking for a very modern interpretation of historical elements. Like the one on the right is, you could argue that it's a modern interpretation of materials or whatever, but I think that one is completely inappropriate. I think it was successful in this building with the brick columns that do go into paving, but it's bluestone. So, and the one on the left with concrete coming down, that doesn't speak to me as low country regional architecture either.
Absolutely. Thank you for those comments. Yeah. With all of these more contemporary versions, I think that there are very specific components of them and not the totality of those images that we find inspiring. I would say in terms of how the 3-story county office building wants to meet the ground, the
you don't have to go back, Becca, but and when we were looking particularly at the landscape condition in front of the CPW building, one of the notations on that precedent was that this was a really good case study for how building meets the ground and connects earth to sky. Certainly that would be the condition on the Welcome Park side of the county office building. So I appreciate that comment, and we are in full alignment with the idea that it needs to be a more textured, nuanced, softer strategy for how the building meets the horizontal plane.
I think if you get the opportunity, the board approved in the last 6 months, the new city public works building. And it's a very tall building and it's a very massive building. It has a lot of low country architecture. And it was approved at, almost the initial concept because of the detailing, because of the reference to history that Somerville has. So if you get an opportunity, perhaps Becca can help you.
We will make that opportunity. Thank you for that.
And look at the,
Absolutely.
there was, I'm calling it the WODA building, but there was one right across the street from here that was approved. And they struggle initially because I think they were trying to be a little too contemporary, and they said, oh, we get it now. All right, we're not recreating history, but we want to look more historic. I think is fair.
No, I think
that's what they did.
Yeah.
So I think that context is important, and that's a 4-story building, I think.
What building's that, Chris? Or across from CPW?
Yeah, no, the one right across the corner from this, the vacant lot.
What?
It was the WODA building that had attainable housing, affordable housing.
Oh, it's not built.
Not built.
Hadn't built.
Yeah, they just got approved a few months ago.
The L-shaped one?
Yeah.
That was.
I wouldn't use that as a
It's
great
existing.
example.
What?
And think red brick too.
I can point you.
Red brick. No,
Thank
no brown brick.
I appreciate those comments, and in particular, it goes back to speaking to us really wanting to be mindful about the lineage that this building speaks to, and you providing case studies that want to be a part of that lineage and that conversation are really helpful to us. I think it also gets to one of the great challenges of this project. I just will share. I was the person manning the architectural character sort of like station for our public input session, and we heard every extreme about what architectural character for the new county office building should be. We heard a very impassioned argument that this should be more ambitious and more contemporary, and that the way to honor the existing hospital portico is by contrast, not mimicry. And then we heard on the opposite extreme that the new 3-story county office building needs to look like it's 100 years old and has always been here. So providing sort of like your insights, particularly to either contemporary structures that you feel that have been approved in either the historic district, like this building through BAR, or the CPW building, presumably by this board, and others that you've looked at that you feel like should be a part of the lineage that can guide our decision making as we refine what you'll see as massing for the 3-story county office building. It's greatly appreciated.
I think the 2 buildings across the street from CPW are ugly. So we didn't do a good job on those.
I think
They're
it's
new.
what these 2 cited examples also show is the evolution of the height.
Right.
So instead of just 2 stories, we're now getting into 3, 4
Correct.
plus stories.
Yeah.
And so that's precedent.
Sure.
And so now we kind of have the precedents and yours along with it.
Thank you.
So it's going to be extremely important, of course, what this looks like. And so what I want to say is, it seems that when we get things of this size, we get boxes. I hate to say that, but that's what happens. We get this box, and so then we have to go from there. So I absolutely love the idea of a brownstone, but I don't want it to be a brownstone box.
Mhm.
I certainly love the idea of a boutique hotel. There's nowhere you can go in Somerville if it's truly going to be boutique and not, I hope, that it will be. And I think it's a good talking point. I think it's so much fun if I had friends come here to stay in Somerville and I say, you're walking through what you know, it's a good talking point. It's history. It's fun. I love the idea of it being open and truly being, a lobby for, a hotel. But again, there's going to have to be some interest and it's, for lack of a better word, it's going to have to be pretty.
Understood.
I'm sorry.
And I think, and I would broaden the scope a little bit, and y'all can disagree if you want, but it needs, when we say low country doesn't mean only Somerville. If you find a great example in Beaufort or some other municipality.
Walterboro.
Yeah, Walterboro. It's the low country motif. That's what it was designed on, you know this, based on the environmental conditions and all that sort of stuff. So we're not saying build that building that was already built here.
And we wouldn't take that case study in that way. But as you know, we try to create a network of imagery that helps to inspire us to manage and balance all of the design decisions that we're making, particularly on the county office building, which I'm wondering if we could actually start to look at the next rendering. So instead of looking specifically at the case studies, start to speak to the 3-story building and some of the yeah, sure, really quick.
And I think it's important, it may already be understood, but just to clarify that what we're eventually going to be seeking approval from you on is the office building in the park, and that the site concept, the hotel, they will come back to you when those phases come. So we definitely want to get them right. But when we refine our application for next submission, it will be more concentrated on the office and the park elements.
Are you intending to have a master plan though? That we can approve prior to seeing any architectural building?
Do you have an answer for that? Otherwise,
I mean, certainly it'll be very tough if you're saying we're coming back with the county building with the first round and not understanding how the whole site works, especially for our civil and our landscape and the overall feel. So I think we need a master plan. And yes, you can adjust footprints, something architecture, but at least have, for a mixed-use project, the functions nailed down, the parking nailed down, the overall site nailed down.
I think what you can expect to see at the preliminary review would be the refined version of what we called the conceptual site overlay that basically showed the entire master plan and a clear expression of what phase 1 will look like and for that master plan, if that makes sense. So I think you will understand, you only understand what phase 1 is if you have the context for the entire development. If that answers your question.
What else is included in phase 1 besides the county building? Is the park?
The park.
And what else? That's it? The park?
The county office building, the park, and site infrastructure. So parking, vehicular drives to be determined in terms of how much of that scope, but. So in terms of the office building would be the only structure in phase 1, aside from any architectural features in the park, like a pavilion.
Let me ask you on park.
Stay up.
Sorry?
Hospitals, the old hospital, the county building will stay in operation until you finish the first building.
It has to. The master plan doesn't work unless we can keep the county in their space till day 1 that they can move into the new building.
Maintain their existing site work that supports it.
Correct. How many phases total?
Just, I mean, we can't hold you to anything. I'm just curious.
It is easiest to say 2 primary phases. The second phase may develop with multiple subphases just to manage the complication of the site and construction mobilization and also market conditions. But, so we're viewing it and planning for it in 2 stages. So to answer your question about the hospital on phase 1, yes, it will again, yes, remaining until the county is able to transition. but then the site infrastructure can't be fully developed with the entirety of the hospital building. So those site improvements in the selective demolition of the hospital, not the protected elements, those will be part of phase 1 too.
I have a question on parking. As this master plan goes, is it adequate for all the functions? 100 key hotel, the county office building with all the county trucks?
We have heard that feedback and heard it loud and clear at the public input session. We heard both that there was way too much parking on this site, given, maybe we go back to the master plan overlay just so that we can have a visual context for when we're talking about parking. So we did hear that there's way too much parking on the site, and we heard there's not enough parking on the site, and please put a 2 or 3 story parking deck here as well. So we have maximized the parking relative to what we consider to be the guiding principles of the master plan, which is to include a robust density of mixed use development that provides a frontage on the important streets around the block, protecting visibility to the parking at the center of the site. And right now it's somewhere around 166 to 170 parking spaces. That is likely to shrink a little bit because what you'll notice is that we still need to think through services on site and utility areas, that type of thing on site that need to be addressed as well. But that is the number that we're currently showing on site. As you know, in the DMX district, we're not required to provide any parking on site, if I have that correct.
Hard to do business without parking.
Yeah. And
No, we
yeah, there's-
absolutely, yeah.
Right?
You know, to me, it doesn't look like you got enough, given what I know about what the county's using right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the county's using a tremendous number of spaces right now.
And
If they're
it's-
gonna stay at the same level of operation and require the same number of spaces, you just don't have enough.
We're absolutely considering that. I can share, I know in the absence of the county being able to speak to it themselves, all fleet parking will not be on the site anymore. And they're going through a very careful parking plan, and those spaces will be allocated as part of our final parking count. But no fleet parking will be here.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask a couple things. So this rendering is larger, appears to be larger than the property, because property line goes through the 4-story hotel. It goes through the future 1-story.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's misleading. This is a 3-dimensional oblique perspective view on top of a 2-dimensional site plan. So that when we bring this, if that makes sense, this is a 3D model
You can kind of see it.
that
on
we're
the-
looking down on a
no.
bird's eye view, and you can see particularly how it's skewed on the southern and western parts of the sites where you can see building elevations. And so that is misleading. Obviously, when we come back to you for preliminary review, it will be a traditional orthographic 2D site plan
Let's do
where
that.
you can absolutely see all of the site edges, setbacks. those type of-
Also for the phase 1 preliminary, can you include all of Main Street? Which is that future 2-story retail? Conceptual wise, architectural wise, not
What do you
necessarily
mean all of Main Street?
this whole elevation. Right now, they said,
This block?
Yeah.
Okay.
so right now you said it's definitely the county building and the park. But a chunk is missing, and I'd like to see, that entire Main Street elevation or lot frontage developed.
So to clarify, what you're saying is you'd like to understand from an architectural character, massing, scale, detail perspective, the full frontage, including the future 2-story retail, even though that building is not to be included in the phase 1
Yes.
development.
Even if it's just massing,
Right.
right? So we just understand the massing. Now, okay, one other minor thing, not necessarily minor. You show angled parking on Cedar Street. I don't think that's a good idea because traffic backs up already along Cedar. I would encourage you not to do that. And then a second thing is, why did you put the county services building where it is versus maybe where the future one story is or someplace else on site? What's the why and why you developed the site plan in the way you did?
Okay. So some of the constraints that limited the location of the three-story new county office building are the depth required between the existing structure on site and the site edges or property lines. So the depth that's required to build that office building, the only edge of the site, the only two frontages of the site where it was possible to do that would be Fifth Street where it's located or on Main Street. But guiding principle of this project is that we don't have a three-story building blocking view corridors to the existing hospital portico element on site. So Main Street was not identified as a suitable opportunity to place the three-story office building. In terms of the depth of the build, it could shift to the corner of Cedar and Fifth, so along, but it was a value of this project that the county office building was essentially the anchor element for the public space of this project. And that public space being located on Main Street meant that that building wanted to be a protagonist in that public space.
Well, if you did go to Cedar or whatever it is, Cedar Street. You went to Cedar and 78, then you're parking to get them open. Cause you're gonna have to park between the 1-story and the 3-story right now in order to tear the hospital down for them to make the move, because the existing county building is taking up all the rest of the parking. Existing building is taking up parking. So the only place you can get parking to open up the new 3-story is where you show it between 1-story and 3-story. Because you got building in the way of the rest of the park.
I think if you flip-flopped the 3-story building and the parking lot, then you'd have parking viewable from Main Street.
Which we don't want.
But you don't want parking view.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the right thing. You've done the right thing.
Well, as we mentioned, we've been working on this for over 4 years, and you can also imagine the number of iterations and studies that tested locations of buildings on site. We'd be happy to share that history with you, but really that location, in particular the location of the office building, was both a determination of the constraints about the county staying in operation, but also as the first building and its relationship to the open space on Main Street wanting to be connected to each other.
I would also recommend that you really study the UDO of Somerville.
Okay.
There are some design criteria and restrictions on the length of a blank elevation on a public street, which I think the north elevation of this office building would be, and that it's too similar. You need to break it up. We, as a board, also are valuing the pedestrian access.
Yes.
Along Fifth. Currently, you're not providing any pedestrian access into the office building, from what I see.
There is not a pedestrian entry to that building off of Fifth Street.
But I think you may consider it.
Well,
just because, you may think there's no pedestrian traffic today. As a board, we're trying to promote the future.
Understood.
There is I don't remember the unit count, but in the northwest corner, right there is going to be like I said, a 4-story apartment building that theoretically is going to have a workforce that will come work on this block.
Yeah.
So we need to be really conscious of that. And another thing is I'm promoting this thought of a linear park like you see in front of the CPW building.
Yes,
It was in, I think it was in one of your slides.
it was.
That goes from this property all the way to here, to Town Hall.
Correct.
So I think it's great that you have a park in the front, but I'd like to see a park or a linear walk, some linear green or something that looks like it's open space going from West Fifth North, Highway 78, down your block.
Well, they got.
No, it's not well articulated on the Cedar Street side,
So you're talking about on the Cedar Street
on the
side?
Cedar Street side.
Absolutely, that is, that
Yeah.
is the intention for sure.
Okay.
The idea is that this is another link in the chain in terms of that greenway
Yep.
that's on Cedar Street in front of the CPW.
And then as far as the future retail goes, to me, it seems like there could be, those buildings could have more frontage along Main Street.
Mhm.
You know, it seems like that's small. I think I would, if you came back and go, when, you know, we added more length on Main, I think I would support that.
Yeah.
It seems small, and it seems like the exposure to the old hospital is wider than it needs to be, and you could have the same effect with a narrower view corridor, because it seems to me that the park space, and I know it's just conceptual right now, is way out of scale for human scale. It doesn't feel comfortable at all. I think Hutchinson Square is very successful with the way it feels intimate, but I think that Missouri Square component just seems really big.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to feel uncomfortable when people are there, unless the goal of it is for large assembly space or something like that. But it seems like for the everyday visitor, the scales aren't right on the park.
Thank you for that feedback. We would agree completely. We anticipate that the future two-story retail will have a longer Main Street frontage and a larger footprint for sure. We are just starting in earnest to dive into the detail of how to balance both the desire for community space and large gathering space, but also sort of intimate spaces within what we're calling Welcome Park and Missouri Square. So stay tuned. We will be bringing that back to you for sure.
And I know this is driving way into the future, into the details, but the details of how that park space is designed are just as important as the building. You know, using local materials, brick, bluestone, all the stuff you see around this region, that's very important.
It's not that far, it's part of phase one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep.
And let's not forget the nickname for Somerville, Flower Town.
Right.
You know, right now, there's a lot of paving in that square, and I'm just wondering, you called it a public park. Is Somerville Parks and Rec gonna have eventual, I don't know, partnership in this? Okay.
From what I'm hearing, it's a privately owned park. No?
Publicly owned.
Okay. And then if it's publicly owned, it needs to be publicly maintained, unless y'all want to step up for some reason to maintain it or something, but okay.
I do want to look at the architecture, but before we do that, I want to respond to your comment about pedestrian access off of Fifth Street into and around the existing or the new county office building. We do have developing floor plans that I think probably will help to explain some of the constraints that we're working with, particularly on that edge of the north edge of the county office building on the ground floor. But what our hope is that providing access from Fifth Street, both at the western and the eastern end, like on Welcome Park end, but also on the western end of that building, invites people into the center of the site and then directs them specifically to where the secure public entry of the building is on the corner of Welcome Park. One of the things we're really having to balance is the county office building is a single public entry building, and making sure that location.
You show a sidewalk coming to the northeast corner of the building. You have a sidewalk coming into the building in the northeast corner.
We do.
So that would be an access point. Then your main point of access would be on the southeast for?
The floor plans will make it a little clearer. So the intention, this is really a two-entry building as it's designed at the moment. On the western end of the
Got another.
office building is the staff entry. So that would be the secure entry for staff. And then on the corner front porch component of the office building that anchors into Welcome Park and Missouri Square is the primary secured public entry into the building. And maybe if we could go to the the aerial overview, looking at the proposed office building massing. This will start, this is way down into the presentation. So keep going. Yep. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going after the case study imagery, that rendering right there. So the primary public entry, as you can see, is articulated in a portico, two-story portico feature that is on the corner of Welcome Park. The best way to visually see that is where we currently have this placeholder signage saying Dorchester County. The way that the building is developing in terms of its design is that corner that anchors into Welcome Park and Missouri Square is organizing public space throughout the building on all three levels. So that end of the building is where your public service counters are on the first floor in a space that we're sort of referring to as a living room. As you go up the monumental stair to the second floor, it's the public service counters for building services in the planning department. And then it's connected all the way to the upper level. You can see there's a terrace overlook on that corner on top of that portico element. That is an outdoor space that's associated with the third level council chambers. So what differentiates this project from how the council chambers are positioned on site currently is that it occupies the highest point in the building, but is also considered to be a public space, culminating, in a way, this building in that corner, the intention of it, the ambition of it is that it connects earth to sky through public engagement, and that the final destination of that is a outdoor terrace that overlooks Welcome Park, Missouri Square, with views down to historic downtown Somerville. So that just helps to explain why sort of like that public anchor is located where it is, not only in terms of the placemaking and the master planning that it wants to be in the park, not on, let's just say, Fifth Street, but also how the building layout that you'll see when we share floor plans with you at the preliminary review is also facilitating all of those public spaces within the building at that corner.
So hang on, clarify that for me again. The third floor with the terrace,
Yes,
the beautiful view, that will be for Dorchester County Council?
that is.
Will that be open for, explain that to me again.
It's a publicly accessible space. The intention of it is that it's adjacent to the county council chambers, which is also in this building perceived as a public amenity space. It would hold events. It's going to be a much more multi-purpose, flexible space.
Okay.
So on county council days, queuing could happen on that terrace. On any given day, somebody would have access through the public spaces to have access to that terrace. We imagine that employees are eating their lunch on that terrace. So it is part of the network of public spaces in the building. It has to be, because we're taking one of the most important moments of public interaction and putting it on the third floor instead of being on the first floor.
Do you have an image of the north side of this building?
We do, absolutely.
Can you show it?
Sure. So we can just run through. So this is obviously the Missouri Square connection to Welcome Park view, and you can see that corner portico component that is 2 stories. The idea for the building is that we're expressing through brick, sort of like that 2-story base, and then thinking about the third story as something that potentially recedes and has a different material character to it. And then you can see that corner balcony component where you see that corner of storefront on the third level. That is the council chamber multi-purpose event space that I was referring to. And then we have renderings that sort of circle the building.
Again, this is a little bit closer, so you can see one of the things that we're exploring is the way that the sort of the, understanding that this building, most of the people coming into this building on a daily basis are likely either going to be pedestrians or parking their vehicles on site and then approaching from their car. The idea that that portico element has a gesture, which you can see in the white massing element that defines, is the placeholder for the signage, and that's where the main entry piece is, that is of the material character and the proportions of the existing hospital portico, so that, whether this is the right strategy for that or not, I want it just to be clear that part of our ambition is that we're thinking of ways that we can honor that structure without mimicking it, and create a comfortable relationship between a building of this scale and the existing two-story building on
Is
site.
this your concept of what the building will look like?
Right now, the components,
Sounds like it is. What you think?
a lot of the material character, I think some of the massing moves, the gestures that you see in terms of massing, where a portico element defines a sort of front porch threshold. That is something that we feel like is something that we're absolutely committed to moving forward with. The location of the terrace overlook on the corner being a component of it. Seeing how we're starting to think about purposeful material change in defining both the third story, but also the two-story base. A lot of those things are things that we would love your feedback on. Having said that, all of this has to receive a great deal of refinement beyond what we're currently showing here. So these are definitely preliminary concept views. So you can circle back. So I think the next rendering speaks to like the approach from the parking lot. So again, thinking about ways to define the primary staff entry on the short end of the building that you can see in this view, but also having a vision to and a pedestrian promenade connection that runs in front of the building that connects the primary parking to the building entry and then beyond to the park. And then the last view is the view you were speaking about, which is the Fifth Street view.
What is the gray material, stucco?
To be determined, right? Not sure at the moment. Would love insight and into what you might like to see. We're thinking it could be a composite panel of some sort. It could be stucco. I mean, ideally, what we're thinking about is that it's a material that helps to really create that setback hierarchy.
So I'm sure you realize this north elevation is going to be the most viewed elevation.
Yes.
From people from Somerville. This is where thousands of cars will approach this site.
Agree.
And make an evaluation of what this is. And so to me, it looks like the backside of an office building. So even though you're talking about there's a single point of entry for security, I understand that. That doesn't negate some of the architectural features that you put on the parking lot side to break up this mass. And again, take a look at the UDO because it does prohibit a certain length of the same architecture marching down.
Yeah, the front door, the parking lot side seems a little bit more articulated than this. This does kind of, once you see the other side, this does kind of look like the back of the building. So I think I like the other sides. I think the height, scale, and mass on the other sides are correct, but the Highway 78 side, it looks, I don't know if plain's the right word, but maybe it needs that. I think the other side had the gray in the middle that came all the way down maybe or something.
Yeah, that was articulating the monumental stair element.
Yeah.
Becca, can you flip back to the other side and let's see what,
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
yeah,
feedback.
like what could you take to the, from that to the,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
Well, you could take that same detail, really.
Just put it on both sides somehow.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there's a lack of nuance and there's a lot of uniformity in the way that the Highway 78.
Again, like I
thought
said,
expressed.
a square box is not what we want.
Need red brick too, not brown.
So.
Not brown or tan.
Well, they're probably matching up to the hospital.
No, they're not. They're two different colors.
Is
Our
there,
intention is that the brick align with the existing hospital building.
is there a reason why the historic Georgian portico was not referenced in any other architecture on site that I could see?
No, there's not a reason for that.
Do you think that has merit? Whether it's small, medium, large? Because right now it's just by itself. And it is a dramatic focal point off of Main Street. But then everything surrounding it
I think
doesn't appear to have any.
I think it has merit in the extent to which you're not the first person who's asked us that question.
After 3 years, I hope not.
And as recently as the public input session for people that we had never talked to before about the project.
I think repeating that portico is not a good idea.
No, I would agree. I think
Repeating those columns, no.
we would agree with that. I guess my initial response to your question is, I think it's probably appropriate. I'm not sure that the 3-story office building is the right mass on this site to deploy that strategy. And that's why you're seeing it not, because included.
I'd keep the Greek out of it. Keep the Greek details away from this building.
Thank you.
And I think that it's, again, height, style, and massing, I think you're tracking well. One of the great things I like about this building is the portico right here. You actually walk through the portico, or you can. Whereas, and it's the length of the building. Whereas, could you explain on this image, it seems like you're not necessarily going to walk under that portico. It's more visual than it is usable.
So
Or am I
at the
wrong?
moment, you would walk under the portico if you're approaching from Fifth. So you can see in this view that that portico extends out and receives what we're showing as the pedestrian access that connects to the sidewalk along Fifth into the building. And you would, the positioning of the entry doors to the building, there's portico on this facade that you're seeing that extends in both directions. So if you're coming from Welcome Park, our hope is that that portico really is what captures you and brings you into the sequence of thresholds. That
Sorry to interrupt. Is the front door under the word Dorchester County, or is it under the brick on the right?
it is under the words Dorchester County, but set back
Under the word county.
12 feet. So I guess if you would maybe go to the next image. So the first bay of the portico here is open. So if you're approaching from Main Street, that first brick bay that you see spanning up 2 stories is articulating the open portico that leads you to the front doors that face toward the parking lot, if that makes sense. So just to give you a concept, that portico element is that whole corner feature. It is dimensionally, I don't know to the exact extent, similar to the portico depth that you have on this building. It does not wrap the entire length of the building, though. Your feedback, your observation about that is correct. The other piece of it is sort of that portico element, sort of like the extent of it, the proportions of it, its depth. And again, I apologize for not having floor plans here to help explain that. All of the spaces that are beyond that portico on that first floor are part of that living room space. So not only is the portico sort of like a threshold of entry into the building, but we also perceive it as a front porch for the living room from the other direction. And that's sort of what defines the plan dimension of it. Going toward Fifth Street, that portico, I mean, the interior spaces that are closer to Fifth Street are back of house departmental county spaces, if that makes sense. So just trying to give you some of the factors in terms of space planning, human experience that we're wanting to think about when we're thinking about the scale and extent of that element.
Just another opinion. I think a major low country technique used to bring scale down,
Mhm.
especially when you have windows, is some kind of window covering. And so, you know, whether, and I'm not suggesting it everywhere, Bermuda shutters, you know, at appropriate, maybe it's not even on this building, maybe it's on your retail building.
Mhm.
But I think something like that brings the scale and immediate recognition to the region
Sure.
because it is sun,
Yeah, that makes sense.
some kind of sunshade.
Maybe on small.
I think those are successfully deployed on the CPW building, as features of that. We can definitely explore that, and from a, you know, building, human comfort standpoint, there's a lot of glass in this building intentionally, because we want to get as much natural light into workspaces and public spaces in the building as possible, but we also have to be mindful of how the building performs and human comfort.
Have you done a traffic impact study or intending to, or not required, intending to? Okay. Do you think it's gonna overload Cedar or Fourth Street? Any indication yet, especially with the hotel there? And you don't have to answer it, but,
Stay tuned.
and then one, you know, I don't know how much time we have, but one question I have, do you think you'll be able to nail down by the next meeting the agreement with the county, whether or not they're gonna have off-site parking for their vehicles?
I think we could pursue that. I mean, I don't know if it's I will take that to the county. We'll see what we can come back with.
Because I think it's important. If the answer is no, then we have to block the visibility of those vehicles, because I think that's a primary concern of all the citizens, in that, you know, all these county trucks on Main Street takes away from, I'm sure, what you're trying to create.
Of course. I can say that, as master developer, and owner of the office building, we will have a lease in place that governs parking. So, it's in everyone's interest, counties also, but all the balance of the uses, that parking will be organized and managed appropriately. So it is anticipated, just thinking through the best way to share details on that, so we can come back more thoughtfully.
All right, I have a couple more site things, but is there anyone else that wants to talk about big picture architecture or anything? All right, we go to, even one of these, can you go to the, perspective that shows the Welcome Park? And by the way, is Welcome Park and Missouri Square just a placeholder names, or are those?
I know
Missouri Square has been adopted via resolution. Welcome Park, I think, is a placeholder, but we can confirm that for you.
Okay, so, when I see the way the details are currently on the park, it's this arc and tangent. It's not, to me, it's not Charleston classical or Low Country classical, which is very kind of bold and square and looks like a Charleston courtyard. I think the design intent that I see in the perspectives is not correct. You know, it's not, it's arc and tangent. You don't really see that in this region. So I would ask you to restudy the park in its entirety, you know, massing and materiality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'm picking up on, if you could go to maybe that first rendered site plan over the survey, is sidewalks aren't lining up. I think, like, if you look along 78, sidewalks are just kind of odd how they don't line up. They're not completely parallel along 78. I'd really like you to, I know you've focused a lot on the architecture and I appreciate that, but the site planning to me just doesn't look correct. You know, think pedestrian scale, think circulation, you know, you've got this great square in the middle, but then there's parking that goes right through it. Does parking really need to go in front of this building? I don't know if it does or not. I mean, does the I know you've thought through these things, but does the future hotel actually need to be on Main Street instead of that two-story retail? Maybe, because I'm just not convinced this is the right site plan, right? You know, and if I can think of some other areas where they've got a future, I mean, they've got a hotel about this size, but the first floor is a restaurant that anybody can go to. This doesn't read as that. And you can, I mean, if you have thoughts on that, I'm glad to hear them, but I know it's a future phase, but it is part of the master plan. But just give that consideration because to me, it seems like, I mean, I see a valid reason to put the retail there, but you could do a hotel on Main Street that gets a little bit more exposure and is more of a mixed use hotel with some retail or some restaurant in there. I think that would bring a lot of life and vitality to this block. And that would be super neat if you went to the restaurant in this hotel on this block, and then you walk down, you know, to this area. I think that's what I really want to see is downtown kind of stops at the railroad tracks now, but it could go all the way to Highway 78. And that would be a really cool downtown. So just food for thought.
Thank you for that comment.
Oh, just one last personal opinion. Charleston is known for its wrought iron work. That, you know, I don't know if the curved wall on the corner is appropriate. I understand it logically, but if it was at Missouri Square leading to there, with some beautiful wrought iron,
maybe
you may have some citizens who say, I get that. I understand that.
Thank you for that comment. We definitely want people to look at this and see themselves in this place in what we're proposing.
Becky, can we go back to the Somerville sign in the corner of 78 Main Street? The existing Somerville sign? No, the one that's here. I think there's one here now, isn't there?
I think we have an image.
See, there it is, with defined corner conditions. Oh, that's Hutchinson Square.
That's Hutchinson.
I thought we had a Somerville sign. No, they used to be there 100 years ago.
Becca, we have an existing
Drive up.
image that's sort of toward the top of the presentation. So keep like 112 maybe has a view of that corner. There we go.
Got it, Hutchinson Square. We used to have a sign that went across Main Street right there. That hadn't been there for years. So I'm long gone. Not there. Almost
All right,
there.
before we wrap it up, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? And just make sure you say your name and sign in, if you don't mind.
Otis Engelman, I'm a near 50-year resident and professional of Somerville. I want to thank the town for the information session last week, which I was a member of with a number of folks. I'd also like to compliment Boudreaux because they sent a senior architect with linear experience as well as the president of the group to a public information center. That's not what I've seen in Charleston. Great stuff going on here. The perspective I have is one that was illuminated by Thomas Dion's letter to county council, which you haven't seen. It's a very impassioned comment. Where I'm looking at this is not from the pedestrian in the center trying to get to the right spot in the county. How about the thousands of folks, all of us, who drive from 199 down Franchise City, cross 78, and all of a sudden, what happens? It's green. It's trees. It's Somerville in the Pines. It's an impressive, emotive experience. Something's different. I would encourage that the development here, and it has to be developed, it's a county property. We need stuff that generates income and taxes. I'm all for that. Don't destroy the vista that we have. Right now, you drive by there, you get to breathe more than twice before you've gotten to the extent of that green passage. I don't want to, and right now, if the plan is as it is, it's going to end with a 2-story brick wall. I'm not against retail. I worked in a fashion in that. So please, as you consider, let's not lose what we have that we could never get back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any parting thoughts or need any comment or feedback? All right, for conceptual, we don't make a vote. It's just a conversation. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Here. Is there any other business? We need.
Yeah, we need to defer, item 3 under new business as the applicant is not present, or if the board would like to do that, I need a motion, please.
So what should we do?
I mean, you can defer discussion of the Old Light.
All right,
Road
we need to make a
department.
motion for that. I'll make a motion. We defer discussion of number 3, Old Light Road Apartments. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Okay.
Um,
Unless you're on your own.
I don't have anything
I got some.
under miscellaneous, so unless y'all have any questions for me, we can get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.